It all started with a very simple idea. Tell the stories of how successful middle market CEOs made it to the corner office. I'm Brand Handley, founder and managing director of Resource Options International, or ROI. We're the USA's premier executive search firm focused exclusively on empowering middle market companies to attract, hire, and retain A players while transforming top executives' careers and lives. ROI's Into the Corner office is dedicated to discovering how middle market CEOs advance their career, and we're making these remarkable and sometimes quite unbelievable stories available to you for the very first time. Listen and learn about the challenges they've overcome, the interesting people they've met along the way, and the lessons learned that steered these executives' unique journey into a middle market corner office of their own. I know you enjoy these CEO stories as much as I've enjoyed recording them. So thank you for listening today. And if you like what you've heard, rate us on iTunes or wherever you get your podcasts. I'm looking forward to you joining me on the next great middle market CEO adventure into the corner office. Today, my guest is Craig Handley, co-founder of ListenTrust and author of the best-selling book, Hired to Quit. Craig's an expert in Hispanic marketing, direct response marketing, and sales and brand expansion, and his businesses employ over 1,000 people and have cumulatively done over $500 million in sales within the last 5 years to the Hispanic market. He started his professional career as a paperboy, winning a contest to go to Disney World for most new subscribers at the age of 13. He followed up with 3 years of door-to-door insurance sales, where he again won the company's highest award on 8 different occasions. Craig served 5 years in the U.S. Army infantry during the first Iraqi war, leaving with an honorable discharge, and then studied voice and piano in college. He has written and produced hundreds of songs, from rap to pop to ballads to parodies. A devoted family man, he danced his way into his wife's heart with his Running Man and his practice rendition of The Worm. He believes that with faith and a little courage, anything is possible. Craig Handley, welcome into the corner office.
Thanks, man.
Great to have you here. And just a disclaimer up front, even though we do share the same last name, Craig and I did our research, and we're not related, or at least not that we know of. My Handley's call from Kentucky. I think I shared that with you. And Craig, where do yours come from originally?
Oh, originally I think it's Ireland, Scotland, back to the old
the
days.
Mother country. Great. Well, let's talk about you.
It was O. Handley before it was Handley.
So. Oh, it was O. Handley. Yeah. So definitely some Irish in there too. I love it. Well, let's talk about you and your generation. Tell us a little bit about where you grew up and what your early family life was like.
Early family life? Well, Dad was a state trooper. My mother kind of stayed at home, but, she worked occasionally here and there. And, of course, my dad had arrested a lot of the kids in my junior high, their dads. So I used to deal with bullying a lot, and it wasn't just one kid, it was like 11 kids who would wait for me after school to beat on me. So I think that shaped a lot,
You got a lot of tough. What part of the country was that in, Craig?
That was in Wilton, Maine, this little town near Farmington, Maine. And growing up there was certainly interesting. I mean, being bullied certainly puts a chip on your shoulder, where you're always trying, it's important to be liked. You always feel like you got to prove yourself, so you have this big chip on your shoulder. It created a lot of things I've worked through more as an adult, where, I realized that I probably have done enough so that I don't have to keep proving myself.
Right. But it served as a motivator, would you say, in a way?
It was a motivator, right? I think everything that happens for a reason. But it was a pretty big motivator. I still even kept tabs on some of the kids who used to be out there waiting for me to get out of school, and watch them all either go to jail or end up as dead end. One guy is a bouncer at a strip club, and so I even kept tabs on how badly I was kicking their ass later on in life. So,
some small rewards, right? Brothers and sisters, Craig, or were you an only child?
I have 2 brothers and a sister.
Okay.
And so I wasn't an only child, but they're.
Yeah. Where were you in the pecking order? At the top, in the middle, down at the end?
I was the oldest.
You were the oldest. Okay. Got it. Yeah. So
Yeah.
were you able to protect any of your siblings? Did they get the same bullying growing up as well, or did they kind of all take it out on you as you were the first of the bunch?
I think it all kind of got taken out on me. My
Yeah.
younger brother was, when he was younger, he was a great athlete, all the way. Like, if there's like the superstar athlete in fifth and sixth grade or seventh and eighth grade, he was the
He
superstar
was a kid.
athlete. He was the
Yeah.
quarterback. He was an amazing baseball pitcher. He could throw just about anything. And we ended up moving before my freshman year. And my brother, who was the big athlete, he didn't really grow. He was, he was like 5'8" or whatever. So,
Yeah.
in football, they wanted to make him a cornerback, and so he ended up, as far as sports go, yeah, I don't even think he played anything. He played baseball all the way through, and
Yeah.
ended up getting, was an all state baseball player, and ended up being a really good athlete in baseball. But it kind of hurt him to move because he was the kid that was the golden child moving into high school. They were like, they're like, oh, we're gonna have Chris Handley is gonna be our quarterback for the high school team, and then we moved, and he ended up falling behind. Every little town has names of family members that have been in the school district forever, right? They've
Sure.
and in Wilton, we were one of those.
Name's still up on the board probably for a few different. For him.
But then when we went to Waterville, this other high school, it was a whole list of different names, and so it didn't work out so well for him, but it worked out good for me because when I was a freshman, I decided I wasn't going to be bullied anymore. The first kid that looked at me sideways, I tackled him and beat him up to try to get a reputation. So he probably didn't deserve it, but he was going to get it because I didn't want to be pushed around. And then I got in the weight room and started lifting weights, and I ended up doing. I was in chorus, and I was doing theater, and I was playing basketball and football, and I was really trying to prove myself. I did so many extracurricular activities that it's crazy.
And you were an entrepreneur as well. We were talking a little bit about before that we started the podcast that I worked for Disney for a number of years, and we mentioned that you were actually a Paperboy and won a contest. Tell us about that.
I actually won 2 contests, getting the most new subscribers going door to door, selling subscriptions, and I think I more than doubled the output of the second place finisher. And I did get to go to Disney with the paper company. Flew me down to Disney.
That's great.
And got to, we were there for I think 3 days. It was a long time ago. The other one was like going to a Red Sox game, and we were supposed to meet Wade Boggs, but he bailed, and I met Rich Gebman and Bob Stanley instead. Which, I don't know.
That made
Wade Boggs would have been much better. He's a Hall of Famer, and and Bob Stanley had his palm ball pitch that he was famous for, but but other than that, they were. It was interesting. So, but I did the papers, and I did the papers all the way through high school too. Like I was an entrepreneur early on. I worked for an ice cream place where I was doing all the lawns, and he owned a bunch of properties, so I was making the trees look like animals, and I was painting, and I was making ice cream, and I built the mini golf course, and they had a pitching thing, and I fixed that. But then I would do like DJing on the weekends. I'd do like a karaoke night or whatever, and so even in high school, I was doing multiple things to make money.
What'd you spend all that money on? Sounds like you had quite a income source, multiple income sources, like we all like to have.
I don't know. As a kid, we'd go out to this dance club, this Studio 2 dance club, and I always liked to go to Big G's and have a sandwich, so it was good. I was just always the kid who had a little bit of money, it wasn't a lot, but I always had enough to pay for gas and, buy a sandwich or whatever if one of my friends didn't have any money.
How'd you do in school? Were you a good student? Did you enjoy your studies or certain aspects of it?
I was one of those kids who didn't do my homework, but I got A's on all the tests.
Mm-hmm.
So I was a pretty steady. I was a pretty steady C student. I didn't need to do the homework to know all the material.
Right.
And so a lot of times I'd turn in blank sheets of paper and be like, whatever, an F on that, but I'll get an A on the test. I don't know. I think, schools don't teach people the way that they learn in a lot of cases. I think that's pretty common knowledge that, you can't teach a fish to fly, so a lot of times the way people learn in school is different. So,
yeah.
But it is
well,
what
you
it
went
is,
on to college. You went on to college and studied music, which I found kind of interesting. Was that a real passion of yours, or did you want to learn more about it? What kind of led you to that field of study?
Of course, I wanted to be a rock star. I, loved
right.
music, and got accepted to Berkeley in Boston and Juilliard in New York City, and
wow,
I still have the acceptance letter.
Yeah.
Pretty cool, but I couldn't afford to go. Berkeley, I think at the time, was $29,000, and I came from a family that was okay, but we didn't have a lot of extra money, and we certainly couldn't afford $29,000 a year at Berkeley. And
Right.
Juilliard was even more. I think it was $49,000. So I joined the Army to try to raise money for college, and it ended up being around $750 a month, which helped pay my rent at the time.
Right. Yeah.
But it
So you went
certainly
into the
pay
Army
for
right
Berkeley.
out of high school?
I went to a travel and tourism school first
Okay.
for 6 months called the Boyd School of Travel in Pittsburgh, and then I ended up working in New York for this company called Ground Handling Inc. For an airline.
Uh-huh.
I ended up getting fired. I was too good at my job. True story. I really believe that to this day, that I was too good at my job. Because I was the first person. We handled 4 different airlines. We handled, it was Northwest out of Detroit, which doesn't exist anymore.
Right.
U.S. Airways. It was Business Express, which was a division of Delta.
Yeah.
And I think American was the other one. But, United was the other one. And so Westchester County Airport had this company called Ground Handling Inc. that really did everything for all 4 airlines. So I learned all of their systems, and I ended up doing check-in. I did security. I was out there parking the planes. I did mostly, though, baggage claim, baggage handling and stuff. When a bag would get lost, I'd be the guy that would hunt it down. And I was really good at what I was doing, and so United offered to send me to their specialized training in Washington, D.C. That was U.S. Air in Washington, D.C. United wanted to send me to Chicago. So that was the first one I was going to go to. And I showed up to work to get on the airplane to go, and they fired me that day. They said I sent out a bag with a woman's heart medication. I sent it out on a special delivery without calling the hotel first to see if they would come pick it up. And although that was true, I had also already done a lot of this work and knew that the hotel wasn't going to send a shuttle to come pick up this woman's heart medication.
Sure.
And, I was all about customer service.
You did the right thing for the woman, right? Oh, yeah.
I think I did. And they said, you didn't call for permission, so we're going to fire you. But I was literally the first person in Ground Handling Inc. that had been invited to Chicago special training and was invited to the Washington, D.C. training. They had employees that had been there for, 12 years who had never been invited to anything. And so in order for them to allow me to go to Chicago, they had to let Leon go too. And so Leon was already in Chicago having a hot dog or whatever, waiting for me to show up. And I went to go on the plane, and they said, sorry, you're not going. Wow. At the time, it was such a shock. All the companies wanted to hire me directly. They're like, why don't you just work for us out of JFK or LaGuardia? We'll still send you the training. We think you're a great employee. But I was just so shell-shocked.
Disillusioned.
That I just, I kind of was like, what? I was living with 5 women in New York, in Port Chester, New York, and I was driving a moped around because I didn't have a car. So I would drive my moped. They had a helmet law back then, so I would be driving my moped with my little white helmet. I must have looked like the biggest dork on the planet. And really, all my roommates were 21. I was only 20. And so I couldn't drink or go out to bars, and they were going out every night. It was horrible. These women would bring home strange men all the time, and I was like, this isn't what I expected. It was interesting.
Oh, goodness. And then off to the Army. And I understand you spent some time in Iraq.
When I was so shell-shocked, and I was like, let me just go back to music, which is what I want to do, and I'll try the Army. And I thought the Army I really loved basic training.
Yeah.
I was in during the Iraq War, but I didn't end up going over there. It was like 3 days.
Go over there. Yeah. You're down at Fort Benning, is that right? Is that where you were?
Yeah, Fort Benning, Sand Hill down there, and did my training. And I thought it was great. I thought it was really a great experience. Love the discipline they teach you. I loved everything about it. I wish I could do it again. you don't typically have that freedom to spend 4 months just really just exercising, eating right, and learning how to be a man. I mean,
Right.
how often? I mean, I think everybody should do it. It was such a great experience. But
What were some of the biggest
yeah, that
takeaways
was.
if you looked at the 5 years you were there and the lessons, particularly in leadership and so forth, that you took away from the Army? How have they served you?
Well, so I was in for 5 years, but I did the reserve, so I was full time for really like 4 months in the beginning, and then it was a
Okay.
couple of weeks every year that was full time. But really, the leadership lessons that you learn, throughout is things that you kind of pick up on later in life too. So patience,
Mm,
for example, they have different classes. Like they have a walk, run, jog, walk, jog, run type of scenario. So everybody's got different levels of fitness, different levels of execution. And
right.
part of being a good team leader is understanding the team that you have, their strengths and their weaknesses, and understanding how to build a team around really mutual talent levels. So I
Sure.
was the guy that carried my ruck, somebody else's ruck, the M60, and I could still run a 14-minute 2 mile, with carrying all that crap. So I was like a tank going through. It was good. I wish I could get back to that level of fitness again. It's
Yeah.
just such a great experience. But then I don't know. For me, I was always a life hacker. I even used to hire someone to do my every like 3 days alphabetically. Everybody has to do night duty, where you have to basically wake up in the middle of the night and spend an hour just walking around the barracks, making sure nobody's, just protecting the other guys around you. And I used to pay somebody $5 to do that for me, so I wouldn't have to wake up when it was my turn. Same thing with like
Right.
KP duty. That was $20 to get someone to go in and peel the potatoes and serve the food. And so I was always entrepreneurial. I was always looking for hacks, but a lot of lessons, coming out of that to
Yeah.
respect. Of course, you got to make your bed and you got to pay attention to detail. And there's an org chart, where there's different levels of authority, and you've got to go through that. So there were all these different components that could be applied to business, and it's one of the reasons why I always look at, people coming out of the military as a potential partner or
Oh
hire,
yeah.
or they're always, I think integrity. They do what
I
they
love
say
that.
in the
I
military.
love that in recruiting. Having
Yeah,
having that strong
in
foundation. Yeah.
sure. I mean, they talk about it. If you're four people going into a room, each one of you has to have a corner, because if one of you misses it, all four of you are going to die, right?
That's
And
right.
so
That's right.
and so everybody understands what their assignment is and what they're supposed to do, and they know that if they don't do it, it could get you killed. And I think that's the same way in business. Maybe you're not going to be killed, but
Right.
your business could fall apart if someone doesn't
Right.
execute the way they want to or communicate the way they need to. So you learn a lot
Sure.
about communication and execution. So anyway, a
Yeah.
lot of lessons.
Well, you went on to phone sales with Talk America, which is kind of the start of your listening career, which we'll talk about in a minute. But tell us a little bit about that time. You spent about a year or two there, from what I understand.
Yeah, I did a couple of years selling insurance door to door,
Right.
and they only paid you a residual for 5 years. So at 2.5 years, I looked at my check, and I had worked really hard, and I had won 8 of the top awards that they have, and I was in the top 10 in the country, and I was probably making $90,000. And in order for me to continue to make 90,000, in my mind, I don't know if it's true or not, but in my mind, in order to keep making that same amount of money, I would have to work 80 hours a week, just like I have
Hmm.
been for the previous 2.5 years. And I was like, man, and they cut your residual off at 5 years. And so I'm
Hmm.
like, well, geez, with the cutoff, I should go work for a company that pays you forever. So I tried to
Yeah.
work with Aflac, and I helped open the state of New Hampshire. But 6 months into negotiating with the different unions, it actually ended up taking about a year and a half to open, and I had to bail about 6 months in and started working for a phone center. My intention was always to go back and work with Aflac in opening the state of New Hampshire, but I ended up learning about phone sales and being able to talk to 300 to 500 people a day who had an interest in your product. There was no cold
Right.
calling; it was all inbound calls, and I was one of 3 people out of like 1,000 people doing over $1 million in revenue, making about 120,000 a year just on the phone. So I was like, well, the hell with this insurance thing.
This is a lot
And
better.
then,
Right.
yeah, and then as time grew, I was writing my own scripts And then the call center asked me to train other people on how to read my script because it was always adding additional ROI. Somebody had quit and started their own call center. They knew that I was a commodity, so they offered to pay me more to come work with them. And then somebody else started to want to pay me more. And then before I knew it, I was consulting at call centers all over the country and really helping them build their call centers out. And at some point, I said, I should really own my own center. I should really, do something on my own. And so I wanted to I ended up partnering with someone who was starting a U.S. center, and we had like 15% ownership in it. And our job was to provide, some really, we were trying to provide business, which we did. And so that was going pretty good. And then we were like, well, let's do our own thing and own 100% of it. We decided to open in the U.S. Hispanic market. So we opened a place in Mexico, just servicing people who speak Spanish in the U.S. Wow. And there was a big hole in that market, and it just took off. I mean, within 6 months, the first 6 months were back and forth, but then we ended up picking up a client with a hair straightener, and they were doing better in Spanish than they were in English. And they ended up sending, went from 0 to 40,000 calls a week or something along those lines, crazy numbers. And we ended up growing from 0 to, over 1,000 employees at that time. Wow. So we made Inc. 500's fastest growing private companies, and that call center has been mostly stable. We've had a couple of years where we had to kind of pivot as the Hispanic populations aged. In the U.S., they do more English than Spanish, so we now are probably 60% English and 40% Spanish, which is interesting, as we've grown through the evolution. So there have been multiple pivots. We used to do only sales. Now I think customer service is even a bigger percentage of our business than sales are, along with lead generation is a big category for us. And so I think over time we've gotten more stability in our business because we now have multiple revenue streams, and it's been a big evolution throughout the years. So
well, tell us a little bit about it. So how many employees today, and kind of what's your span of operations?
Today there's about 1,000 employees. We do about 150 million in sales for our clients on an annual basis. We probably bill out about $13-14 million, and have a 2 to 3 million in profit every year, pretty consistent. We do a ton of lead generation for big clients like Bosley or Hair Club, lawyers, taking lead gens for class action suits, or there's a bunch of lead gen campaigns, and then we do a bunch of customer service. We've got, we're really good at making sure we can communicate with people at a higher level, and it's funny, we take calls from big companies. That one big client that we have, we were trying to get them to test us for years and years, probably 7 years, and they finally decided to test us. They put us up against their control center. The control center has been taking their calls for 10 years. Nobody beats the control center. We beat them in 2 weeks.
Wow.
So we're really good.
What's the differential? What do you think really differentiates you guys?
Culture.
Without sharing your secret sauce.
No, it doesn't matter. The secret sauce is out there for everybody. It's culture. It's building a culture that people really believe in what they're doing. They care about what they're doing. And on top of that, it's training. We built a sales manual where we teach people how to communicate. I mean, I went through this 2-week sales training with W. Clement Stone. The Success System That Never Fails is the book that you had to read. And they teach you how to say things, how to hesitate, modulate, emphasize. Done a lot of work with Zig Ziglar stuff, and Tom Hopkins, and Og Mandino, and just all these different, sales manuals and sales books and sales strategies. Done a lot of reading up on Robert Cialdini with his book Influence, and just really put all of this information into a training guide. And by putting in, look, everything's 10,000 hours, right? If you look at how long it takes to be an expert, well, I've trained over 10,000 hours, and every time I adjust my training to communicate more efficiently, and that's what that ended up turning into a program called ListenTrust, where I literally would spend 3 days, and it's the name of my best-selling book, Hired to Quit. I would train my employees to quit over the first 2 days. We'd talk about what's important to them and their dreams. And I'd explain to them that the better they did on the phones, we route calls by performance and we pay by performance. So if you study and learn the training, you can quit sooner. So what it did was a lot of people decide not to quit when they're making double what you could probably make in the area that they're in. A lot of them decide to stay. And
smart strategy.
If you're good at your job with us, you can make a lot of money. And then there's a lot of people that make a lot of money, but they save it and they end up quitting and building their own business. And that philosophy of helping people leave allows more people to stay.
Wow.
Crazy how that works.
So, what a paradigm. I love it.
Yeah.
Well, so tell me about, when did you first start managing people, Craig? Was it when you were in the insurance side? Was it when you started with revenue enhancement? When is it that you kind of had that direct day-to-day?
Oh, I don't know. I mean, look, even when I was in high school, as I started to kind of fall into my passions, I directed the senior talent show. So I had a bunch of acts, like, and people do crazy little skits and make-up skits. It's like a little Saturday Night Live thing that every senior class did. Sure. And so I ended up being the director of that and ended up having running the whole event. So I always had this ability, I think, to lead. As far as I always led through performance. I mean, a little bit. I don't want to compare myself to Tom Brady, but when your actions do the talking, it makes you much more credible as a leader.
Yeah.
And I was always the best sales guy. I would take people out with me and show them how to hit their awards. I was always the best on the phones. I would partner up with other people, let them listen to me. I'd listen to them and provide coaching and feedback on what they were doing. I've always been a giver. Yeah. And I've taken more joy out of giving because I think people like me, and that comes back to the bullying, And so, and today I spend all my time, I just try to find ways to give to others in the universe, whether we live in a matrix or, whatever we're living in, aliens, God. The energy of the universe typically always gives back 10 times when I'm not focused on money and me. When I'm focused on others, I end up getting back a lot more than I ever could give.
Real servant leadership. I love it. How would you say your leadership's how would you say your leadership's evolved over the years? Has there been some, specific times where you've said, gosh, I really need to kind of change this, and you've changed it up, or, you've maybe read a book from someone that really had an impact on you, and, you modified some of the things you were doing?
I remember when I started out, I thought everything was proprietary and confidential. And I didn't want to share my secrets, and I was wearing a Rolex and a $300 pair of sneakers, and I thought Tommy Bahama was cool shirts. And I would walk around like I was somebody important, and when people asked me things, I'd be like, oh, well, we need to sign an NDA. And, I just learned that all of that is bullshit, and that really life is about serving others and giving. And as I've solidified that thought process more and more, I've seen more and more success. And so I teach.
That's awesome.
Look, I tell young people today, look, out of 10 people in your circle, one of them's going to be maybe a billionaire, and you don't know who it is. So treat everybody as if they are that billionaire while you have them in your Rolodex. And then 10 years from now and 20 years from now, I have at least 6 billionaires in my phone with their phone numbers, and they reply to me within a day,
Yeah.
How many millionaires do I have? I don't know, 40 or 50, maybe more. Why do I have all these people who reply to me and talk to me and don't judge me? I mean, how did I do that?
Right.
I treated everybody like they were amazing the day I met them.
Wow.
And I didn't count them out. When they said they were going to do something, I chose to believe them and support them in their dreams. I said, yes, you're going to be amazing. You're going to be great. How can I help? And I tried to help people early on. So my phone right now is a truly valuable component, because if I need to get a hold of somebody who's typically unreachable, I usually have a way to do it. And
I
continue
their number
to do that. Today I'm writing a lot of music. And what's ironic is I'm so good at marketing that a lot of musicians open brands, and they're searching me out as much as I'm searching them out. So, for example, I wrote a record for the Miss America pageant that they're planning on performing live on December 16th on NBC. and I'm looking for a singer. Well, interestingly enough, I also control the sponsorship space. So Carrie Underwood has a yoga brand. I'm trying to reach Carrie Underwood to do a barter. You sing my record, I'll help promote your yoga brand. Rihanna has a makeup brand. Ariana Grande has a makeup brand. Who wants to be the official sponsor, makeup sponsor of the Miss America pageant?
Right.
It's a couple of $1 million in value. All I want you to do is to help sing this record, which is the Miss America pageant this year. They've gotten rid of the bathing suit contest. A 20-year-old girl will never have to prance around half naked in front of a bunch of strangers again to get a scholarship.
Right.
Their message this year is positive body image.
Mm.
And not all the Miss America contestants this year are thin little pretzels.
Yeah.
But they're all beautiful, beautiful women who are amazing humans and talented humans. And they're doing more than just being pretty. They're smart, educated, committed to causes. I mean, this year, Miss America is making a change that's going to change the world.
That's
and
awesome.
So I'm so proud to be supporting them. And the record I wrote, it's called Love Me Better. And it's all about loving yourself and being okay with who you are and being perfect. And making young women believe that they're perfect just the way they are.
Yeah.
But if they want to grow, there's nothing wrong with wanting to grow as well.
Yeah.
You can be a masterpiece even if you're a work in progress.
Right. Great work.
So I'm really enjoying, the business bartering and the everything I've learned, and kind of plugging in and creating these relationships. I have more to give. I have a bigger opportunity to give to Rihanna than she has for me, for example.
Yeah. Right.
And I try to give before I ever ask for anything, and that approach serves me very well in the fact that I've met so many amazing people.
Yeah, great principle. Well, you talked a little early about company culture, and as a CEO, as a founder, it really does fall on you to propagate that. How do you do that, particularly with 1,000 people in diverse places? How do you communicate that? I know your actions are important, but it's hard to touch that many people, and I'm just curious as to how do you continue to reinforce that great company culture at ListenTrust?
Great company culture. We started out by asking all of our key employees, really it was about 30 people at the top of the food chains. So we went a couple levels down with what do you think ListenTrust is all about? And we came up with, I think, 18 different things as to who we wanted to identify as far as core values.
Yeah.
We then spent 2 weeks and we said, okay, if you could be a company, that always sees ahead of the curve, but also you're a company that never is positive and fun. What's more important, right? Or you're a company that's always positive and fun, but you never know what's ahead of the curve. So you're always playing catch up. You're never. And so we went through and we just said, if you're this or that, what's more important?
Yeah.
And we found out what our number one value was. And then we went through it again to find number 2. And some of the things morphed into others, so 18 became 12 because 6 of them were similar enough to just kind of push together.
Combine them.
And then 12 needed to become 5. So some of the things we just thought weren't important, and we just kind of went through. And as a company, we made our list. We started with 7, and then another year went by, and we decided to redo them again, and we went down to 5.
Right.
And then, and throughout all this time, we hired a culture manager. And not only did we build the culture, but we basically put markers in that showed we are living our culture when. And then we put a list of things that, that would show that we're living our values that we created.
Right.
And so we had a person that we hired as our culture manager, and it was her job to pay attention. We created 6 pillars of happiness. And so, for example, one of the pillars was health and wellness. That became the month of January. We focused on health and wellness. We had dentists come in for free cleanings. We had, sexual experts come in to talk about, sex health, and, we had rehab people come in. We had, all these different people come in focused on health. We did a diet program with people to help them lose weight. We got everybody fitness memberships at a discount. We did so many things for health and fitness, and that became January and June. February and July was relationships. So now it was people coaching men on how to be a man in your relationship, people coaching women And then there were people that would work with people as a couple. And then there were people that would talk to parents about parenting. And it was all relationships, everything you want to know about relationships. And then, time off. We had people building their big life list. They want to go to Disney. They want to go to Machu Picchu. What are your big life lists? If you want to take time off, what do you want to do with your family? And, and so we had that as another pillar. Money. How do you manage your money so you can achieve your life list? How do you, how do you save? How do you quit and go do your own thing? I mean, we had all these different pillars set up to help people improve their lives and create happiness. We've done studies and we've been able to prove that happiness is profitable. It actually raises the close rate by 3 to 5 points.
That's true. Yeah.
It improves attendance. Look, happiness is profitable.
Yeah.
So why not have happy employees when you have a choice, right? We've done a survey.
Absolutely.
And we had a 45-question survey, and we were able to prove that when people were happier, we made more money, and so did they.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it was good for everybody. So being happy is a byproduct of running a successful culture in your business, which creates more profits for everybody to share.
Yeah.
So having the company Christmas party, even though it may cost $15,000 to put together an amazing Christmas party, you make more than $15,000 by having an amazing Christmas party.
That's right. Yeah.
So
Awesome.
Anyway.
What you obviously hire people and you've built up an organization. Craig, what do you look for when you're making bets on the people you invest in and hire into the organization?
Culture fits. We ask questions primarily about culture. Once they pass our culture qualifications, then we actually look at their skill levels.
Mm-hmm.
And so for us, it's a series of questions that we ask them around. Yeah, and they're stupid questions. Like if a penguin walked into the office right now wearing a sombrero and carrying a margarita, what do you think he'd say to you if he could talk? Right? Just stupid, right? And part of it is, can you think on your feet? How creative are you? It's a stupid question, but it's one of those that I love, We have a question, what could your hobbies tell us about you that your work history can't? And you learn a lot about somebody based on their hobbies and their passions.
Yeah.
So we've got a list of questions we've developed over the years that allows us to see how people fit culturally. And if they fit culturally, then we want to work with them on, their skill levels and bringing them in to the company. And, of course, they're blown away by us taking 2 days and training them how to quit before we train them on the job.
Everyone goes through that, right, Craig? Everyone goes through that?
Oh,
learn how to quit? Yeah, that's fantastic.
Why? Why would we do that? Because I want everybody to understand that their dreams are more important than my dream, right? It's your life, man. It's your life. Live your life and be proud of who you are and what you want to do.
I love it. Well, Craig, you've been very generous with your time, but we always have one last question we ask. And, that's got what kind of life and career advice would you give to someone that's maybe, got their eyes on the corner office or like yourself, has always had entrepreneurial tendencies and would love to build a company someday like you've built? What would you tell them?
Well, I just think they need to figure out what their passions are. I'm a musician, and somebody asked me, you're a musician, what's that mean? What do you want to do? Do you want to be on stages and sing? And I had a record contract handed to me, but it required me to be on the road really 300 days a year to tour. And I would have been away from my family, away from my job, so my business may not have survived. Is that what I wanted? Or did I want to write songs for other artists? Or, so it was really dialing in on specifically what you wanted to do.
Yeah.
And then once you are specific about it and your intentions are set, write it down. And then don't go away from it. Keep working towards those goals. And I think a lot of people try to make decisions based on money and finance. Well, people who make the most money are the ones who align with their passion, their core values, their own values, live in the place that they're supposed to live, their heart space. Those are the people that might not make a lot of money as they start out, but they're happy. And then typically when people see them in their special place, like a gymnast, or like if you watch the Olympics, those people, those athletes, maybe not people, maybe those athletes, when you watch what they do, it's beautiful. When you watch a dancer dance, it's beautiful. A concert pianist play, it's beautiful. Why? Because they're living in the passion and in the place that they're supposed to live. So if you get in that place, like when I talk about marketing, people see my energy.
Right.
And they see my energy completely shift. And so I think if someone wants to do their own thing, they should figure out, there's a hack to everything, and you can figure out how to create a side hustle based on what your passion is.
Right.
And then figure out the path to turning your side hustle into your passion. But I think the biggest thing for anybody is figuring out, what you're good at. I'm good at operations, but I don't like it, so I'm not great at it, and I'll never be great at it, even though I know everything I'm supposed to do. Why? Because it's not my passion. So I hire operations people who love to do shit and create processes and create these platforms, and I hire people to do those things. I know what needs to be done. I can supervise it, but I don't want to do it. And so I would say to anybody trying to start out, learn what you're good at. Either hire or partner with the things you don't love.
Right.
And try to find your space, your place, where your passions can meet your business acumen and turn it into something special.
Wise counsel. Greg Handley, founder and CEO at ListenTrust and author of the best-selling book, Hired to Quit. Thank you so much for sharing your journey into the corner office.
Anytime.
Thank you for listening to Into the Corner Office with Brant Handley. We hope you enjoyed hearing our guest CEO story as much as we did. If you want to hear more CEOs reveal their journey into the corner office, please subscribe via iTunes and tell your friends and colleagues. For more information about Brant, Resource Options International, and the mighty middle market, visit www.goforroi.com. We look forward to having you join us for our next episode.